All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to BU Inspirational Interviews. I have with me Barry today. I don't know anything about Barry besides the fact that he was recommended by Kenyatta. So if you had watched Kenyatta's interview, um, I don't even know how you guys, I mean, I guess I'll let you tell the story of like how you guys met and whatnot, and then segue into your own story. Um, but all Kenyatta said was that you would be a really good person to have on the show. So I'm taking his word for it, and that you are studying to be a radiologist, or you already are a
I'm
radiologist.
actually studying to be a radiologist.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you take it away. Welcome Barry to the show,
Thank you
and
for having me.
glad to have you.
It's a pleasure. So I met Kenyatta. Let me say, I would say Kenyatta, and I met in 2013.
Oh, wow, a
Yeah,
while ago then.
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And we first met. You know, I was taken back. He was a new guy in town. We were actually staying at a place called Homeward Bound Marin.
Okay.
Right across the street. And I was walking to the cafeteria, and there was this man who sat there who was a lively personality. We always notice somebody new when they come in, and he was sitting there, and at the time Kenyatta was on swole like this.
Oh wow.
Kenyatta looked like a bodybuilder. He's a
Yeah, he's
ex-police officer and is in the military, and so he was all about just had a lively personality. Was over the top. He was really big and really respectable. And so, we hit it off right there from the beginning. We felt each other out for a little bit. We talked, and then later, um, we became actually really good friends.
yeah.
Yeah, just, conversation, and he's an older than I am, so him and I exchanged information. It was a good relationship. It was a good match.
Yeah. So what is the place that are you okay with sharing? Like what is?
Well, it's a veterans home,
Oh, okay,
but then
okay.
also um, people who it's a veterans home. It's also for people who are in transitional home, in the transition,
Mm.
finding a new home. Whatever the circumstances may be.
Mhm.
Um, and at the time, I was separating from a girlfriend of mine. We were living
Mm.
together,
Mhm.
and it ended abruptly. I just dashed. I got out of there, and so um, I went to Homeward Bound Marin. I knew
Okay.
about the place from before because I went to culinary school there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
I graduated from culinary school there. I worked there for 2 years. You go to school for 6 months, and then you do a 7 month internship. So I did that, and I worked for the facility, and I worked for the restaurant that they had,
Mhm.
and worked for the residents. They do celebrity chef nights and things like that.
Oh,
So
how
yeah,
cool.
so we were able to work with celebrity chefs and you know make our name. Working through the company. It's a nonprofit organization,
Yeah.
and so with that nonprofit organization, they get funding through these events, and people donate, and so they have celebrity chefs like they had Charles Fun, Joanne Weir, who's a television chef.
Mm.
They had what's his name? He's from Van Halen. Not I forget it. I can't. Sammy Hagar. Sammy
Okay.
Hagar. They had Sammy Hagar there, and they have various chefs there, and so
How
that's what the
cool.
program was about.
Was that fun?
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was a good experience.
So you have a bunch of sorry. So we are in my home today because we yeah circumstances, but our special guest Kaida today. She's shown up in a few episodes.
I
So
think I think I've made a new friend.
she has returned. Hi. But anywho, so that's really cool. So then that's how you know Kenyatta. So tell us about you. So how we kind of do things here is you'll take us through a time where it may have been a difficult period, and then how you got through it. Excuse you, how you got through it, and okay. Let me know if you want me to put her in the room.
It's
Okay. um, and then advice for anyone that might be going through that same thing. Um, All right, Kaida. This is not your interview. Okay, 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 okay. Sit. Thank you. Good girl. Okay.
I'm a dog person. I've had dogs my whole life,
Okay.
so I know how it goes. Okay, so what was the question again?
Anything that you're willing to share that might have taken you through like a hard time, um, and then how you got through it, like your mental state, like kind of like for example, if my story isn't on like the season 2, which is video, my story is on the audio only version, which is on Spotify. And I shared that I had accidentally become a member of a cult, and it took a really dark turn. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of explained like my mentality back then and who I was back then and how I thought. And then the other side of it was a completely different me, for the better though. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that darkness kind of like the analogy of like a seed grows in the darkness, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and when it sprouts, it's completely different. Or like the butterfly and the chrysalis, or things like that. Like the metaphors that very much makes sense, because when you're in the darkness you don't know what's happening,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of like, what is this? And then when you're suddenly on the other side of it, you can look back and be like, oh,
You can
that's
make
who
sense
I
of it
was,
after
that's
that.
what I was like, and that's who yeah. It's okay.
Sorry about that. That's Kenyatta. I let you pause him on that one.
We can always stop.
The question was, when did I have a time where things were maybe not to where I thought they would be, and I had to work my way through it?
Yeah.
Um, you know, I would have to say there's been plenty of times like that. Um, I find that we deal with that on a single basis. Every time something happens, we find a way to work our way through it. We find a device that we need or that we can use to cope with that. Identify it and then address it and then move forward. Um, I think when when you say go dark, it's more of like
Out of all the times, she.
thought about it for a second. Was like, get over
I
it.
know, she's like,
Looked at it. Like,
I know. Hopefully, maybe these microphones will like be good enough to like block it
yeah,
out.
block
But
it. I hope so.
in the background, it'd be funny if, because it sounds like a little duck that's like whack whack. But
so
anyway,
yeah. So you know, that's a good question because okay, so there's this period where I was not happy with some of the decisions that I made. As far as going against my own guidelines,
mm,
as far as I'm not blaming anybody else about what I do and
mhm,
decisions I make, that for myself.
mhm,
It was more of I was unhappy with the group of decisions that I had made,
mhm,
and it seemed like it started to make a snowball effect, you know,
mm,
and I always feel that being the person that we are, you know, we have the capability of taking our situations and making it and creating whatever we want it to be, what we plan to be,
mm,
with the goals that we set for ourselves, and and then when other people get involved, that shouldn't change. You
mhm,
know, I think that's what the dynamics and the chemistry between people is that when they see that you have the ability to do that, that draws them towards you more. Because then when they have something that's going on, you can help mentor or listen, or do it by example or work out with them. Come up with a solution. And at that time in my life, I was on target. I had goals set. I just graduated from culinary school, and everything was rolling. The ball was rolling. I just made a name for myself, you
mhm,
know, um, and um, I just created. Actually, a friend of mine and we had just created a recipe,
mm,
and we put together two different types of food and and put them in a combination, and it went viral.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
cool. What
So
is it?
it was a pulled pork slider,
Uh-huh.
and we put coleslaw on top of it.
Oh, oh yeah, I've had that before.
Yeah, people call it
But so
different stuff.
you
Yeah,
were you the originator from of
well, you know, my thought process is that we were the originator of that because
Mhm.
here in this part of the world, no one was doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody was doing that. It was my friend Anthony Webster, a longtime friend of mine, and we got reunited, and we were talking about opening up a business together, a
That's
food
nice.
truck,
Yeah.
and uh, and so we were going over recipes. We already did all logistics and talked about it, and we agreed that we were going to do that. So, we met at his house one night, and with his family, and we were putting it, we were just going over our head what we can do, what kind of combinations, and we were like, for one of our dishes, we can have a pulled pork slider, maybe on a baguette, or or on a roll, and
Mm.
then and we're talking about what kind of flavors we want to put in there, what the flavor profile would be,
Mhm.
with the side of coleslaw.
Mhm.
We were going over everything about the ounces, the sizes, everything. Trying to tell me if we want to go to big sandwich or just slider. So we decided to do slider. And then I said, why don't we do something different? Why don't we put coleslaw on top of that? You know, and then we tried it, and it was delicious.
Mhm.
And so then I went back to Homeward Bound Marin that night. I told my culinary instructor and of course my boss at the time, I have this new recipe. I think I want to try it, because we want to try it for the residents that live there, but then also for the general public,
Mm.
because they have a restaurant that was in San Rafael, and then also they do catering for the public, private events, things like that.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it was we did it. It went viral. It was great. So that was the story behind that. So at that moment in time, everything was picking up. Everything, the ball was rolling. I was feeling good. You know, being in the culinary and in that field, and having aspirations of wanting to be a celebrity chef, or just not even a celebrity chef. I just wanted to be a successful chef. I
Mhm.
wanted to make good money and
Mhm.
do my own catering. And things were rolling, and I had a really set schedule. Sort of like how you have a set schedule.
Mhm.
I would wake up in the morning. I would go work out. I would work out from 5:30 in the morning until 7:30, and then jump back in traffic and then make it to my job. I was
Mhm.
working at Nordstrom's, called the Blue. It was the restaurant that was called the Blue Stove at the time,
Okay.
and it was really upscale.
Yeah.
And that's my routine. Then I go to school. I was taking Spanish class, because I know everybody in the kitchen speaks Spanish, most
Oh, that's
kitchens.
right.
So
Yeah.
I was taking Spanish class. I was taking psychology and business management. Then I go home. And that was my routine over and over again.
Yeah.
And then I met someone.
Oh.
you know, and they say when you're into somebody, and that goes both sides. Um, they unconsciously will have you change your routine because you want to spend time with them.
Mm. Mhm.
You know, and at the time, that wasn't really what was going on, but that wasn't my thought process, and so I stayed on schedule. We started getting a little bit closer, and then things started to change. I started to really fall for this person. At first, I didn't want to really have anything serious,
Mm.
because there was a lot of different things that were going on,
Mm.
dynamics, and I don't want to get into all the personal things about them because this is about me.
Mhm.
But and so we ended up getting serious. So I ended up moving out of the place I was living at, and we got a place together. But we lived with some of her friends, roommates,
Mm.
and it ended up not being like the structured environment that I set for myself. It was
Mm.
more of a party environment. It was a
Mm.
nice house, but it wasn't anything what I needed,
Mhm.
separate from what they were doing, And like I said, once again, it wasn't about what they're doing, it's about what I'm doing, but my environment, it needed to be in conjunction with how and my routine, And
Mhm.
so, that being said, went down this road, we were partying and things like that, and it just started the snowball effect,
Mm.
lost my job, lost my, lost my
Mm.
car. I was paying payments on my car, and you know, she had my girlfriend. She had Caesars, and so she kept having seizures. She had grand mal seizures. So every time she had a seizure, they would call me at work, and I would leave and I'd come home to take
Mm.
care of her. That was my concern, to
Mhm.
take care of her. And so that's why I lost my job. And so then it just started to snowball. We started partying. I just gave into that, and then I just started just feeling really down about myself, really down about the decisions I made about being with her and moving in out, from my place with my friend. We had a roommate situation and moving with her, and just started having like these not really negative thoughts, but just started going to this alternate thought place.
Mhm.
And it's really pushed everybody away, you know, and you know, but at that moment in time, I started, we started arguing. Now I'm living with her. We're living together. We're not getting along. Everything's just all bad.
Mhm.
So then I started getting to this creative place in my mind where I've done before, and I started making music, and then I started doing something I wanted to do a long time ago as a thought. I thought I wanted to do a screenwriter. I wanted to write
Oh,
screenplays and
cool.
skits like that.
Mhm.
And so then I started writing stories, and I would take the time to do that. And that brought me out of a really dark place. There was still a lot of things going on, but that helped take my train of thought out of just being so negative and being so, woe's me, and now I need to get away from you, and talking about what they're doing wrong and not concentrating on what I could have done better.
Mhm.
And so it sort of lifted me up out of this dark place that I was at in my head. Just taking myself away by thinking, I can make some stories, create something, and take everybody else away. At the same time, I'm taking myself away at the same time.
Mm. Mhm.
And so now, I'm actually in a guild, and I'm writing screenplays,
Oh,
stories right now.
cool.
Currently, I'm trying to get them on the big screen or in streaming. And so,
That's awesome. I should put you in contact with. I have two people that instantly came to my mind. Which one of them is his name's Believe. He has a studio, and he wrote a short film that I actually acted in. Um, and he's into stuff like that, and he has a place where you can go and be creative. And the other one, his name is Carlos, and he also is very much into like cinematography and like all of that behind the scenes stuff that I never really thought about. And he actually also put me in one of his his short films where I was a pregnant lady. Like I had like a fake belly and everything, and I had like this attitude, and it was so fun to like play. But it'd be nice to like put you guys all in one room because they don't know each other either. So it'd be kind of nice to like have a bunch of creative, like-minded like minds like creating and sharing space and so
right, yeah,
so that'd be nice to get you all three together. But yeah, it sounds to me like like you're definitely a creative. Like you create things, you create food, right? Like different recipes and whatnot. You created music, you're creating screenplays, and so why are you taking the turn from a creative to not a caregiver, but like the health industry? Like why?
um, the health industry was always something I considered.
Hmm.
I wanted to be a transporter a long time ago, and it was
What's a
just something simple.
transporter?
Transporter was at the time just wanted to transport people from one room to another room.
Oh,
So if you're
okay.
going for having a procedure, and say you're in the ICU and
Oh,
now you're gonna go
I
have
didn't know that
images
was a
done or something,
thing.
yeah, I'll transport you. They have different people do different departments. They're all different departments.
Yeah.
And it's like just like any department store or something like that, or grocery store. You have different people who work in different departments.
Yeah.
And they all specialize in one area. You have your nurse, you have your physician, you have your radiologist, and then beyond just imaging, you have, your cardiologist. I mean, it's just the list goes on. And so I decided that I wanted to do it because a friend of mine is a radiologist,
Mm.
and he makes a really good living.
Mhm.
And it was during the pandemic that everybody the world was shut down,
Mhm.
and you know quote unquote we were considered a first responder now.
Mm.
Working out
Mhm.
because I work at Whole Foods. I'm a chef at Whole Foods. I'm one of the
Mm.
managers there, and and you know, I just really saw that the company that I was working with was a good opportunity, but for what I thought that I was going to do at the time, as far as being a chef,
Mhm.
it wasn't going to fulfill what I wanted to do as a chef. I wanted to, I've always wanted to, I wanted to run my own business, be head chef, and Michelin star, all that stuff, you know, and make a really good living,
Mhm.
but stay within the realm of, you know, a chef,
Mm.
and when I realized that working with that company, that to get the pay and the life that I wanted to live, I'd have to leave that behind,
Mm.
and apply, just tears, become corporate and things
Temporarily
like that.
or
No, I'd have to leave being a chef behind altogether.
why?
Well, because their system as a chef is different than from what
Oh, with that
it's
company
with
though.
that company, with that company.
But not in life, right?
No, not
Like
in
you're
life.
gonna go
No, not
back
in
to
life.
it
No,
later?
yeah,
Okay.
not in life. Just as in that company. And so that's probably Kenyatta.
Who is it? From the creative stuff to go into radiology. So I like to call these like moments where my friend who he's actually a he does like tarot and he has like an intuitive he can like tap into like the collective he's incredible. His name is Holden. Shout out to Holden. So he was doing so I get a reading with him every year around my birthday. And I loved what he said about something. He's like, you're gonna have a couple lily pad moments, meaning like you're getting somewhere, but you kind of have to pause and take a breath on a lily pad, and then you're gonna go to another lily pad, and you're gonna go to another one until you get to your final destination. He's like, but I see little lily pad moments, and I love that term because it gives me a visual of like I'm like a little like a little frog. There's a little frog outside my house too. But that like a little frog like I'm on my way, but I just have to like pause real
Mm-hmm.
quick. Do this really quick and then go here and then I'm still like carrying on my path. But there are certain moments that, you have to fix like and in this case it might be like a financial fix, like let me fix this really quick. All right, that's good. Now let me just keep continuing on my way. Um so that's what I think I'm hearing, right? Like you're going into I mean
Well,
and you could be passionate about it too, I'm sure, but
it's
yeah.
like there's this saying that I really attach myself to is life is not the destination, but it's about the
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
that
know,
too.
and so I just want to tap in with you real quick about your friend in the tarot reading, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I had a personal friend or acquaintance who did a tarot reading with me one time. But he did a crystal ball reading.
Oh,
He had a
I've never
crystal
seen someone
ball.
do that.
Yeah, right.
Only on TV.
And I remember when he first told me about it. He's like, I do crystal ball readings. And this was like, you know, when we first met, he was the manager of the RV park where I was living, where I was with the company I was working with. I was
Uh-huh.
living in San Jose. I think I told you,
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
live in
yeah.
San Jose. So he was the manager of the RV park, and he collect the rent. And so one day he was like, I do crystal ball readings. Maybe one day I'll give you a reading. You know. So okay. So I
Cool.
think I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I said maybe it took like a year, right? A year later,
Mhm.
we were in off season. We're hanging out, at the fairgrounds. Me and my coworkers, we didn't have any work for at least for like 3 weeks. And so ran into him. He's like, "Let's do a crystal ball reading. You ready?" I was like, "Yeah." So my first question was, "So are you gonna look in the crystal ball? It's gonna get all foggy?
Like on
Are
TV.
you gonna see something in there?" He was like, "No, no. It's just a symbol. It's a symbol where the energy comes. He's actually gonna do a tarot card reading. My
Uh-huh.
brother, one of my brothers, I have a big family. One of my brothers, he does tarot card readings as well. But it was interesting. He said something along the similar to what you said, not really the lily pads, but
Mhm.
just I've had so many different readings when they say I had palm readings,
Mm.
and they talk about the bricks within the lines. I
Hmm.
guess they're reading that, and reading lines in the bricks,
There are
reading
so many.
connecting. They didn't say like it was gonna be like it was a life or something was gonna happen, or they said there were breaks in
Yeah.
there. So I kind of related to what you're saying about that, the tarot readings and the breaks and, you know, the journey that we take.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it's very powerful moments.
Mhm.
When you have tarot card
That's
readings
where the
come over
transform. That's where the transformation happens. I feel like
there. Yeah.
because if you, like you said, it is really the destination because that's who you become. Who you like. You just keep evolving for the better.
Hmm.
If you're learning from the lessons, obviously,
Yes.
there are certain like lessons where I had to go through multiple times because I didn't get it. And so I'm like, oh, it's me. Or like, oh, okay, no, I need to change this about myself. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm there's so much that I have to go. I mean, I'm studying something called Kabbalah right now,
Hmm.
which is you know what Kabbalah is?
I've had a roommate
Oh,
who was he was like death metal rocker guy, right?
uh-huh.
He used to work at the Renaissance Fair. Was into he was
Cool,
in the
yeah.
crystals and all that stuff. He had everything.
Yeah.
It was almost like Dungeons and Dragons, but just so he talked about Kabbalah, or you said Kabbalah, but he talked
Kabbalah.
about Cabal. Is it
That might
same
be two
person?
different things. So Kabbalah is the study of, oh shoot, of receiving. So no matter what religion, or even if you're not religious, because I'm not religious, I'm very spiritual. But if you whatever you believe in or whatever, as long as you believe in a higher power,
Hmm.
then you can follow Kabbalah because it gets you closer to your higher power. Um, and where was I going with this? Oh, so just my lessons and what I'm finally realizing. So and it all ties in with everything that I've studied because I've studied a little bit of like I don't want to say I've studied quantum physics, but I've studied but I've studied like the basics of it where like, everything is vibrating, everything is, whatever, even your thoughts and whatever, right?
Hmm.
It's a vibration that you send out into the universe. So you act as a magnet, but not for what you want. People think manifestation is like, oh, I really want this, so let me just think about it all the time and let me visualize it or whatever. Which that's not what manifestation is. It's whatever your energetic, your bot, whatever your is happening here is sending out like little antenna into the world,
Hmm.
and you're getting that back. So if you're vibrating in anger, you're going to attract things that are going to make you angry. So that's why, so have you heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza?
No, I have not.
I'll share some things with you. He's great at explaining this stuff. Um, so he says like if you practice gratitude for just 15 minutes a day, like and really feel grateful for like like I'm breathing.
Hmm.
God, I have somewhere to live. I have somebody that loves me, or I could say like my dog. Like there are a million things that you could be grateful for. But if you really like sit in the feeling and you do it for 15 minutes a day, you're gonna start to attract bigger things and like better things and like like you'll find more reasons to be grateful.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but anyway, it's your vibration that you're putting out there. So when you change yourself, is when you start attracting, like you attract what you are giving out into the universe or whatever. So anyway, I go off on tangents if you haven't
That's
noticed.
okay. I'm totally with you right there because it's I've the energy that you put out and also the physical energy, the interactions that you have with people.
Yeah.
It's all the same. I practice Buddhism.
Mm.
Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. But I'm also I'm a Christian. And so I'm gonna throw you for a loop here. You know, but I'm also a Mormon, and I became a Mormon um, 2017, and that it's just most people think Mormon is just a born again Christian.
Oh,
Christian
okay.
is the rise of after they after Jesus Christ. After they put him on the cross. And he rose again,
Mm-hmm.
and he made himself visible to a Mormon. And so I am spiritual. I have spirituality. I try to understand as many and involve myself with as many as I can because um, the divide is what has been the biggest downfall of
Mm.
religions. Is the divide.
Right.
The meaning is always there's always someone's perspective that they feel that first of all it's their own, but then someone else is blasphemous. or
Yeah.
or what did they say? Um, uh, Infidels, whatever they're going to do to downplay someone else's thought process. But when you read the Bible, everything's all together. It's all in there.
Right. It's all the
You
same
know.
thing. They're just using different names.
Yeah, and so like you said, the energy, you know, the manifestation, and if I put it in medical terms, it's like the nervous system, right? The
Mhm.
nervous system is going to come to play, and when you sing out that energy, because telepathy or positive energy, it's
Mhm.
all mental health and 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 biblical, you know, spiritual and medical. They're all intertwined, and
Mhm.
they're all valid. They're all real. And it all depends on how you want to phrase it, how you want to describe how it happens. But it all happens. So the power of manifesting. Physical term. Verbally and non-verbally would be. First you pray about it. You devise a plan. You think about it. And you put that energy out there.
Mhm.
You know, um, good vibes, good feeling, and then to get other people involved, you put out verbally, and then you you make plans. You put ideas together. It's like in the movie business. I'm learning. I'm learning. That beyond just having the skill set to write something that gets people say, well, that's nice, that's interesting. Or when you describe it to them, you do a synopsis, you verbally do it, and then you give it to a piece of paper, and they're like, yeah, I can see that. And I'm captivated. It's like reading a book. You
Mhm.
take me there. Um, it's the same way of building relationships and making that whole interaction happen. You know, you you find out that maybe this person wants to work with this person, and they've never worked with that person before.
Mhm.
And you put the whole thing together. You know, when you really wanted to make it happen. It's like medical terminology. It's like you start at the synapses. And then it goes and it starts down, and then it goes down that synapses, goes down the axon, then it goes down the synapses, you know, and then from there, you know, it's going to go into the ion sulfate's going to go in, the gates are going to open up, and the ion's going to go in there, the K gates are going to open up, and the K is going to go out, and then now, you got um, 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 diffusion. Then from diffusion, you know, you have you're going to now get the sarcomere to start going. The sarcomeres go, which are the muscles,
Okay.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
and then all this is like an action potential. There's an act called action potential,
Uh-huh.
and this, and I think that that same order of operation is the same way as mentally manifesting something, because it's all mental. That's all neurons. That's all neurons firing. It's all
Yeah.
something that we have,
Yeah.
and for that to, it happens within your body, and then it exudes out of your body, and you can do that, verbally, mentally, and physically. You get the ball in motion, and everything that we talk about, you know, is all valid, and it all happens. And it depends on, like I said, the device that you use to make that happen. You know, it all comes together. So that being said, the thought process where I decided to become a radiologist, I had the opportunity to do that because during COVID, um, we had to be ordered by the state of California to only allow a certain amount of people to come into the location,
Mm.
and so we were told to do some physical work to open and close the doors manually,
Oh.
to control to control the flow of people coming in. I ended up getting injured doing that, and so then I had to leave work for 8 months. I had surgery on this shoulder, and during that time, instead of just sitting at home and watching TV, like they said, just sit on the lazy boy chair and
Mm.
recover and then go to rehab, 3 times a week.
Mhm.
I decided to go to school, so I went to school online and I started my first course for radiology, psychology, and all that stuff. It covered everything that we're talking about right now, which
Yeah.
was cool. I've tried psychology quite a few times, 'cause I'm interested in that. Um, I've learned that everything I'm looking for is in psychology, but also in human behavior. When
Mm.
it comes to psychology and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So it all started to manifest. My thought process of becoming wanting to do this a long time ago, and then actually making it happen. The the course of events that had happened, and then me getting there and making it happen, and from just a thought to actually physically doing it, and
Mhm.
then everything that we're talking about now, all the thought process of the tarot reading, and just I can go on forever talking about how I've connected the dots mentally to thoughts that I've had and things that I've heard, things that I've read, movies that I've seen, and through experience, through education, you know, and interaction, it all has manifested. And so, that was the turning point, and I just this opportunity,
Yeah.
one door had closed. Well, it didn't really close. Something negative had happened, and instead of dwelling on it, and just sitting there, waiting for something, waiting to heal, I started to make the transition to do something different.
Yeah. Are you excited for your new
I'm excited.
adventure?
I'm excited. It's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's it's a lot to learn. It's like anything else. It's a lot to
Yeah.
learn. It's rewarding. It's something I really want to do. It's not about trial and error. It's just about um, retraining your mind and your habits because it's something that is very important. It's not just me. It's not just for my income. It's going to be helping people.
Mhm.
And I'm going to be in situations. Possibly. If I'm in an emergency room, it'd be life or death.
Mhm.
For the most part, it's probably just going to be. I did my volunteer hours. It's just going to be diagnosing. You know, or it's going to be um, doing checkups and looking to see if operations have gone well. And letting them know the bones have set.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now because it's just going to be X-rays, not MRIs. Or you know um, topography where I'm going to be actually mapping people's nervous systems. And
Ooh.
so many
Is
things.
that something you want to do?
It's something that possibly I could do. You always start off. If you don't go to med school, 'cause I'm just going to junior college, and so um, I'm just picking to be in that department, and then I can build onto it if I want to.
Mhm.
Eventually I could do radio. I could do nuclear science, where I'm going to help stop the division of cancer cells.
Wow.
And that's what radiologists do. It's step by step. You can do MRIs, you can do mammograms, and you can do CTI, computer topography imaging. That's just like finding your neurons and finding the proteins, and so you can radiate the cancer cells and things like that.
I didn't know that you could do that. I thought it was. I thought that you only. I thought the only option was like chemotherapy, where it's like all you kill all the cells. I didn't know that you could
Well,
zero in on a certain
you can zero in on
effective cell.
you can zero in zero in on a particular cell.
What?
And it's funny. It's like everything that we watch is it's like the Incredible Hulk. It's gamma rays. You're actually you're actually taking you will first locate and map the cells. You'll pick out a protein, and then you will extract that. And then after you extract it, you'll study it, and
Mhm.
then you'll radiate it, and then you'll stick it back into the person's body, and then that will send out gamma rays, and then it will stop all the other cancer cells from dividing.
No way.
Yeah, because that's
Then
all.
why do people do chemo then if
Well,
that
well,
wasn't
well,
if that's an
I
option?
think I think well, I'm just learning the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the spear, because I get my certificate on just learning about
Mm.
the overview of MRIs. You know, um, I think that might possibly be part of the chemotherapy because that's why
Oh.
people lose their hair and things like
Yeah.
that because of radiation. Because you know, cancer is about having abundance of cells and things growing at a
Mhm.
fast rate.
Mhm.
And it's something that in the movie they call it the Incredible Hulk. He grows at a fast rate. The
Mhm.
skin grows. So for him to get bigger, the skin has to keep growing. We know the skin grows is the biggest organ on the body. It's
Mhm.
constantly growing. So and so and then the bones get bigger. That stuff happens. And in a movie, that's like glamorous. He's the Hulk. He's strong.
Mhm.
But that's what like cancer is, and
Mm.
that's why the glands and stuff just swell, and people die because the other parts of the body aren't growing.
Mm.
It's the cell
So
or the gland or
interesting.
something that's going the pituitary gland, something that's infected that's going to grow, and
Yeah.
then from you start hemorrhaging and then you die. And chemo stops those things from growing. Radiate that. So I
Yeah.
think that's why they lose their hair. Don't quote me on that because I'm not certified in that part right there.
Yeah.
But as I'm learning to put things together and move to the part. I'm in class when we're studying and we're asking questions. We're right. About that. But
Yeah.
like I said, don't quote me.
Yeah. So interesting to learn though, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
it must be easy to pay attention in those classes because you're like, oh, that's well, for me, that sounds really interesting.
It is.
But how far are you from?
I'm in my last two prerequisites. So
Nice.
I'm
And then
doing
you get into the heavy stuff.
anatomy
Okay.
and physio. And so
Okay.
and it's tough. It's a lot to learn.
Yeah. It sounds
There's
like
a
a lot.
lot of
You said a
prerequisites.
lot of stuff that I was like,
Yeah.
huh?
There's a
But
yeah. There's a lot of prerequisites. There's a lot of prerequisites, but they all line up. They're all valid. And at some point they all pertain to the medical field. As
mhm.
far as we know, and you know, and they also psychology pertains to every field.
Mm.
Because you got to learn how to deal with people. People's thought process. How to deal
Mhm.
with people. Intercultural communication. Learning how to deal with people and address them on their terms, not only on your thought process.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
you know, humanities.
Yeah.
And then there's math, always math,
Oh.
calculations, English. We're
Mhm.
learning English language, and then from there you just keep going. Medical terminology,
Yeah, that's a
and
whole nother language in itself.
right, yeah. I still have so I have my prerequisites. I take these last two in January, and then I will apply for the program, and then I have to do general ed.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just like basics of like I said, humanities and things like that.
Mhm.
These are the requirements that you have to be registered in the state of California if you want to have a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she has to go to. But yeah, so we were talking about terminology of the medical field first of all.
Yes.
And then so yeah, so this is your new venture. It's exciting. Um which is always, yeah, I mean, whenever you pivot to something else, it's always fun to like meet new people and like just build a community within that community and like learn more about what your interests are. It's really cool. So that's awesome. Um, okay, so now let's go into, say someone is out there listening and they're gonna pivot, but they don't have a positive um, view, right? Like you said very briefly when you stopped the culinary, you said that you kind of felt like shameful, or you're like, oh, I plan to do this, and now it's not going that way, so now I'm not, you know. So what if someone's feeling that way? Like how would you help them get out of that?
Okay. So you know, first what I forgot to mention is that I continued working with Whole Foods.
Mhm.
I really let them know that I'm going to make the transition into becoming a radiologist.
Mhm.
Um, and so what I did do was all the skills that I had learned through my prerequisites and in school, I still applied them to Whole Foods and to my community of chef and to
Mhm.
the corporation. All of those prerequisites were valid in doing that. You said culinary and medical are going hand in hand. It's like being safe serve. And words like amino acids and things like that. It's all about stuff that you put in your body. And so the prerequisites they all applied, and so I didn't completely just mentally check out.
Mm.
Maybe physically will be leaving soon, but my my thoughts and my prayers and my friendships will hopefully still be intact.
Mhm.
I'm not planning on leaving chef being a chef at all.
Mm. Mm, that's
So
good.
I'm still going to be doing other things on the side as well.
Yeah.
The first thing I did was when I was researching about becoming a radiologist, I read up about more about what they did, um, and how much time you have, to do it, so instead of what I saw on television, working 24-hour shifts and things
Yeah.
like that, or Trapper John MD or whatever, Marin General, um, and realized that a lot of people, just like in other jobs, they move up the ladder, and they move up sometimes sooner than later.
Mhm.
You know, and they go into the AART or AART or AARP. You know, corporate, or they go to billing, or like I said, they become full-on physicians. You know, they decide to move on from just doing X-rays to MRIs. Um, but but at the same time, some people will will have a second job, and
Mhm.
they do real estate. You know, you have time to do other things as well.
Mhm.
So, being a chef is something I will never stop doing.
Mhm.
I've done it before I went to culinary school. You know, and for my family to thrive, I still have the dream of opening up a food truck.
Mm.
You know, so
Mhm.
that way, um, that'd be like a family business. You know, someone
Cool.
can just,
Yeah.
people always need to eat. It's never going to go away.
Mhm.
Food truck's never going to go away.
Mhm.
And then that could be something I can leave to family besides just when I have a family, to the family, besides just health insurance or maybe whatever money I have left and saved, which I will because I save money. Um, but something that they can use as a stepping stool, or a an income that's
Mhm.
coming in, until they decide what they want to do in life.
Mhm.
A business, give them something, tangible to make money, something lucrative that, all the flow of money is always coming in,
Mhm.
and so it's still a dream of mine, so I'll never let that go. But the word advice is first, you know, um, always prepare yourself for whatever direction that you want to go in life. Whatever ventures you're going to go on, whatever endeavor you're gonna embark on. You want to do your research. You want to plan. You want to plan it. Because I always believe that your success, all of our success, is always achieved in preparation.
Mhm.
Because once you prepare yourself, you get the thought, you create a plan, and then you execute. And in that order, you'll always be successful. You may find bumps in the road,
Mhm.
but those hurdles are meant to be jumped over, and then keep moving forward.
Mhm.
So just plan it out. Put a lot of thought into it. And then after that, don't say I want to. You say I'm going to.
Yeah.
And then you do it. You know, and just you know do your research. Um, Find what resources are available to you. Definitely take advantage of those. You know, I take a lot of advantage of the resources that are available to me at school. You know, which is I joined the group Hope and Mesa, which
Hmm.
I'm also part of a Moja, which is international and it's a black student, but then also international. Everybody can join there, and we have all the different groups in schools. And so I joined Hope, which is geared for all medical students in all
Okay.
departments.
Cool.
And they make sure that you have all the resources that you need, the information that you need, um, you know, um, and free books, you know, stethoscopes, anything. That you go there, eat lunch, and study. You have your own study hall. You know, um, and it's a place where you can build relationships. And actually, the most important thing is to keep the conversation going because
Mhm.
suddenly you're taking in a lot of information. You're learning a new language. And if you don't apply it every single day, you're always going to have to go back to that book, which people do all the time. But
Mhm.
we're doing something within a 4 5 year plan that um, physicians and most people who go to medical school do in 10 years. And it's
Mhm.
just repetitive motion. And you keep the conversation
Mhm.
talking. That's all you do. So you got to remember every bone in your body. Besides that, every organ in your body, every cell in your body,
Crazy.
every tissue in your body. You know, everything about your body, you have to remember it. The name, how to spell it. There's some long
Oh, man. Yeah.
names. What it does, what it does to
Yeah.
this, we're connecting. So it's a lot. It's like and that's with any business and anything that you're doing.
Yeah.
So just to create a space for yourself in your environment, create a space in your head where it's going to be reserved just for that, and you always attend to that every single day. And you just when the opportunity arises, you step through that door, you run through it. You don't walk through it, you run through it.
Yeah.
And you,
That's great. I love that. Yeah. So, how would you say your thought process is when going into something new? Like it's scary for anybody, right? Like it's new. You're not someone who's like, "Oh, I've been doing this for 10 years. I got this like the back of my hand." Like when you start something new, it's like, "Ah, I have to learn everything. I'm new." Like and you're not afraid to ask questions. But what if there's people out there that are like, they get that feeling of like, oh, I don't know if I could do this. Like, there's a point where you're like, am I gonna go for it, or am I gonna stay in my comfort zone and safe here where I know everything? Like, how do you push past that comfort zone?
Um, the comfort zone is going to be probably one places that you're going to have to learn to adjust as if it was like a pair of stretchy pants. you, you know, because the comfort zone can hold you back sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, you know, asking questions isn't a sign of weakness. And some people will think, um, because if you don't ask questions, then you won't exercise your right to say that I do know something, and
Mhm.
then and then to learn something when you find out that you didn't know that, but and that's all that process is. You
Yeah.
know, there's many times I'm in class where I wanted to ask a question, and I was right on point. I was right on point. In the middle of conversation in lectures, when you catch on. A lot of times you ask a question because you want to be like, "Am I thinking this right?"
Yeah.
And you're asking it, and then the teacher is going to say one or two things. Yes, and this is why. They're going on a tangent. And then sometimes everybody in the class will look at you like, everybody looked at you for a quick second. For a second you're like, okay, I'm a smart guy. But you don't want to get caught on that, or you'll be like, no, but let me tell you why. You know,
Mhm.
and you just learn, and doing that you find out that you know, you're learning. You're just
Mhm.
learning. And that's what you're doing. Don't be afraid to think that you're not failing because you don't know what's going on. That's why you're going to school. That's why you're taking an adventure.
Mhm.
You know, you may have the passion to want to do it and the desire to do that. And like I said, if you didn't study ahead of time, then you have to ask questions. And
Yeah.
then you're already stepping out of your comfort zone because it's something new. Um, and so the best advice is just to you know never don't second guess yourself,
Mhm.
and don't hold yourself back, because if you do, that's all you're doing, is just gonna hold yourself back.
Mhm.
Even you hesitate. You know, um, you know. That being said, you know, listen. Sometimes just take it all in and take the time until you get comfortable. Then you can start asking questions. If it's a place where you need a question, you really want to know. You know, it's just you know, trust in the fact that you are doing what you want to do, and that's the only thing you have to worry about. It's learning and taking that and
Yeah.
getting it. And once again, you get to exchange information from your fellow students, your fellow coworkers, and then your instructor, or you know, the trainer. That's what they're there for.
Mhm.
And like I said, then you can always go to outside sources. We live in a world where you can teach yourself.
Mhm.
And you find out in classes in school. That's what's about. I learned that coming out of culinary school. In culinary school, myself and the other guy named Owen, we were like the valedictorians in the class. You
Wow.
know, and I don't know if this was because we were optimistic or really upbeat or whatever. You know, and when I came out of culinary school, I had all these bright ideas. You know, um, and I thought I didn't think I knew everything, but in my mind I was like, yeah, I'm the man, right? I went to my first interview in a real fancy restaurant, and I caught myself sitting there thinking, you know, you know, the interview was it wasn't like a gonna tell you the menu and this and that, and we're gonna show you how to make what I want to make. I mean, the interview was like told me showed me around the restaurant, showed me the establishment, talked about the menu a little bit, and then the chef at the time, the sous chef at the time, got a couple orders in, did the orders, did something that it was something different that we do in culinary school. They cover everything in culinary school, but did this move where he's like, you know, was searing the steak and for a couple seconds on one side. Usually they say you want to sear it on seven side. If you're going like well done, sear it on one side for like 7 minutes, and then the other side for 7 minutes, and then you're done. If it's a thick steak, and then you're done. He did like three. Like did for me like 2 minutes on one side, and 2 minutes on the side, and then took it and threw it in the oven. Then started doing something else,
Mm.
did other stuff. And did everything real quick, right? And it was like boom, put it out. And then left, right? And put the food on left. And then the next order came in,
Mm.
and I had no idea that it was my turn. He was like,
Oh.
he just left, and he was like, order came up, guy dropped the ticket off, and it was the same thing he just did though,
Oh.
and and you know, um, at that moment I realized that I needed to pay attention to what was going on, you know, um, you know, I needed to pay attention outside of what I had just learned, and pay attention that I'm still learning, you
Mm.
know, in the establishment. Everybody has different over operations,
Mm.
your overview of what you gotta do, but that was my first learning curve in that. And then after that, I would never do that again. I got the job, um, but it was kind of embarrassing at first, because it's, you
But
know,
how are you supposed to know if you didn't say anything?
true, but I'm supposed to pay attention, the bottom line is that I realized that everybody wants you're supposed to be like turnkey. You're supposed to come in. You're supposed to know what you're doing.
Mm.
And so that's once again it's like it's about you know how to cook, but you want to study their recipe and their menu first
Mm.
before
Mhm.
you even apply. You
Mm.
want to know about
And
their
that's what you
restaurant.
mean by preparation.
Yeah,
Like,
know what their recipes are.
do your
Know what they
research
do. Yeah, do
first.
your research
Okay.
first. Yeah.
And that's a great metaphor in life anyway, right?
hmm
Um, but yeah, that's really good. Is there anything else that you want to share?
Um. Wow. I would like to share that. Okay. So can I share something with you? Can I share
Yeah.
something with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So I love doing the show. I love your I
Mm.
love your interview. You're a really good person, a really
Thank
great
you.
person. So thank you for inviting me. Um, so there's a couple of things I want to share.
Mhm.
So during my studies, um, I was in anatomy for the first time. Some people, most of my classes, all my classes I got A's and B's.
Mhm.
Mostly A's. Um, and I took anatomy the first time. This is gonna be my second time too. I took anatomy the first time, but I had to drop out of it because of my car. My car was hit while I was at work,
Oh.
and I travel to Santa Rosa, JC, and I live in Nevada. I live way up in the hills. It's a nice neighborhood, but it's, that itself, 15 minutes away from the freeway.
Mm.
And so, and I worked in Santa Fe. My night shift. I work at night, and so I get off work, and I don't get home till like 11:30. 10 o'clock. Um, 10 o'clock when I had my car, but my car was hit. So then I was riding my bike. And it's I ride 3 miles from my house to the bus station, or to the bus station, or to the train, and then you know to Whole Foods in Santa Fe, and then do that at nighttime and went back. And then go to Santa Rosa. That's 3 miles to the train station, and then another 2 miles from the train station to Santa Rosa. And so you know I'm working a full-time job, and so I had to drop out of that class,
Oh.
until I can make the adjustment,
Mhm.
and schedule my classes differently. But during that process of being in school and learning about the brain and learning about the organs, I was holding the brain in my hand, or in a jar, in a petri dish, and we're also looking at the model, and looking at this part where it's called the diencephalon, and it's a series of organs in the brain, um, the corpus callosum, the coral plexus, the third ventricle, the fourth ventricle, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the medulla oblongata, the pons, the midbrain, and the brain and the brain stem. Um, and it's all in like a different colors in the brain. It's white matter, and the red brain is gray matter. And so they have a very distinctive color, and you can shape. So when you're looking at it, most people don't they're just looking at what I just listed off, what I just said. But I immediately saw was the Eye of Horus.
Oh.
Yes, exactly. It was
Wow.
and when I saw it, the first thing I said was to my instructor. I said, "That's the Eye of Horus." And I said, "Do you see it?" He's like, "Yeah, I do see it." I said, "Have you ever noticed that before?" And he got a PhD, right?
Mhm.
And and I talked to other physicians and other radiologists that come into the store, and I always tell them, what they do in the script. Always, always like, I'm always excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be a radiologist. I'm gonna be part of your group soon.
Mhm.
So then I bring up that conversation, and they're like, wow, and I like tell them about it. And they're like, wow. Everybody told us, wow. No one, no one has ever said, I know, or seen that. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Um, and so I talked about that, and this was this time last year. I was talking about that. It was actually November. I was talking about that in October. I was talking about that, and I just kept talking about it, and I was looking at it, kept going back and forth, and I was putting stuff up on the campus little profile, social media profile, and stuff like that, and just kept going over and telling people at work, and just talking about people. Just like, yeah, whatever, whatever. I mean, they saw it, but just like it's not anything significant. And I was like, so I said to my instructor, I said, I've never heard anything about it. It seems so, it's really obscure because I haven't heard any information about this on any documentary,
Mhm.
on anything about the hieroglyphics. Higher Horus's prominent 54 depictions of it on, the hieroglyphics.
Mhm.
It's in a superior position, it's, you know, and, um, and everything about it, superior position, as far as like the hierarchy of the mythical order and what happens. Um, and it's also in a superior position in your body because it's in your head.
Mhm.
You know, um, and now that's your third eye, the eye of Horus, because
Mm.
it is an eye.
It's crazy.
You know, and so since then, um, I was watching TV about a month ago, and watching YouTube, and I saw my first video on it where someone is now talking about it, and they talked about the mythical part of Horus
Mhm.
and Anubis and all that stuff. And then
Mhm.
they said, now we're going to take you out of the mythical into the neurological. They start off the video talking about the Eye of Horus and how the Eye of Horus can help you mentally, you know, and they're proving, neurologically and all this other stuff. And then they said, so they go through the history of the mythological Anubis and all that stuff with Eye of Horus. And then they said, now we're going to take you out of the mythical into the physiological. And they said, if you, just like I said, if you take the picture of Eye of Horus, and you put it next to the diencephalon on top of it, all the dimensions are the same. It looks exactly the same, and it's all. So if you look at it,
Mhm.
maybe when we're done, I'll show you a picture of the diencephalon. You
Mhm.
actually see it now. And so, and the video was only 4 months old. So this conversation that I've been talking about, and I roll back, when I was talking to my instructor, I was like, well, who would I talk to about that? And he said, well, you need to talk to an archaeologist. And
Mhm.
so I called the archaeologist, the official archaeologist of California, which is San Francisco State University, and I
Mhm.
left a voice message. And they never got back to me, but I told them everything I was telling you. And so now, 6 months later, 7 months later, the first video of it that's only 4 months old is on YouTube. So that conversation has actually picked up.
Mhm.
And someone made it a very elaborate video. I've been thinking about it and talking about it, but it's like, I'm more concentrating on, trying to concentrate more on just learning about the body and learn these for first, and then before I go on a tangent on this, and then
Mhm.
I need to go back and reiterate my, you know, information about the Egyptians, and just not just go off my thesis. 'Cause my thesis is that um, obviously it's not just the Orthodox, just it's not just the Latinx that were the ones, because that most of the language of medical terminology is Greek and Latin,
Mhm.
you know, and everybody in every culture has their order of operations of how they figured out their medical practices, and
Mhm.
we know that. So my thesis is that, of course, the Egyptians practice, they learned how their medical practices through mummification,
Mhm.
and that even back in that time, that they were so advanced to know about the brain, because you have to cut that to see that, you have to cut the
Mhm.
brain in
Mhm.
surgical view and open it up and look at that.
Mhm.
And other people weren't touching the brain and doing that back then,
Mhm.
and they were extracting it through the nose, or so they say. And so, and then to take that and then put it on the wall, that my thesis was that was their medical log, logs as well. It's not just this, mythical thing about movies
Mhm.
and everything. It's their medical logs. So I thought
Yeah.
it was pretty amazing, and that's it's starting to come to a head. So I wanted to share that with you. So
Yeah,
you're
that's
on YouTube.
crazy.
If you look at it, you say you
Yeah.
got it on your finger. It's significant to all of us, and everybody, has
Yeah.
some significance to a connection to that.
Yeah.
And notice up with the third eye,
Yeah.
and the third eye, it's in your head.
Yeah.
It's a diencephalon. That's got a
That's
body.
crazy. I
Yeah,
thought it was here though.
and it's they would say that, well, it depends on Indians would
Because
say
your
third eye,
pineal
things like
gland
that.
is here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But for me, the third eye, I would say the third eye would be that is because that's the diencephalon is what regulates. It's the superior part of your entire body. It regulates all the things that you got going on in your body.
Hmm.
You know, your glucose. It's going. It's it does a lot. And it regulates all your body functions. You know, and so I feel that it looking like an eye. That's what I think was like the third eye.
Mhm.
And that you know they were drawing that back in the days.
Yeah.
You know,
You have a visitor. That's so cool. Have you talked to Kenyatta about that?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's a,
Because I know he would be interested in
yeah,
that.
yeah. We
Cause
talked about. I wanted to. We wanted to watch the video that I've seen on it. Um, on Thanksgiving, but we were watching a football game and he was tired from dialysis and
oh
stuff. So,
yeah,
but yeah, so yeah, you should look it up.
I will.
Maybe one day you can come up and we can all watch it together.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I would say after this, but I've had quite the night. So my energy isn't the best right now. But yeah, definitely. I
Check
would
it out.
be.
Check it out. And then
Yeah.
let's go back and look and see how far it goes back because, like I said, it's just recent. And so I just think it's amazing. You know, um, I can't wait to see what else everybody else, you know, talk about it and with significance with their interpretation of what it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's medical practices. So many amazing people have done things and discovered things. And I'm not trying to negate what anybody else has done. I just wanted to. I saw the similarities, and
Yeah.
I immediately, went there because I wrote an essay about in English about life imitating art, art imitating life, and now life imitates art.
Mhm.
And you have to come up with a supporting, your thesis, then supporting evidence, body of evidence, and conclusion, and all
Mhm.
that stuff. And I
Mhm.
did it on a totally different subject. But then once again, once I saw that, I went back to that. It brought me back to that. Is life imitating art, art imitating life. They discovered that and they put that on the walls. You know,
Mhm.
and once again, we're reading a storyteller and they're telling stories. And that's what was back in the days. First it was walls and on the stones and stuff, and there was papyrus.
Mhm.
And so that was just pretty amazing.
Yeah. We can have a whole nother conversation on just that. That's actually what I started like. How me and Kenyatta got to talking is because he was talking about something about Kemet. He's like, "Do you know what Kemet is?" I was like, "Egypt."
Yeah.
Like, duh, everybody knows that, kind of. And he was like, "How do you know about?" Hold on, and then we had this whole conversation about like just ancient knowledge that we found interesting, and how we had a connection to it, and why, and I don't know. It was really interesting conversation, but
Well, how can we not have a connection to it? It's like
I know, yeah,
we're all connected. Even though we try to lay emphasis on our differences or on who's dominant or who's doing this. We all have a connection. All those roads. Wherever what region you came from. If you're going to be civilized, you're going to collectively do something different. They all those roads led to Egypt.
right.
The Silk Road. There was the Silk Road. The trade. The trade went from the Silk Road from Chinese. The Asians. Who were trading silk. And we kept going down. There's like a big flea market.
Mhm.
You go to Egypt from Japan to China to Egypt.
Yeah,
And the commerce and merchants and commerce.
that's where
So
you came from.
we're all connected.
Yeah, cats originated in Egypt,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's where your ancestors are from. He has a little M too on his forehead. You see him? They both do.
Hmm.
They have I forgot what it. Somebody said that what it's like stood for. It was like something really cool that I was reading about the certain tabbies that have the symbol, the M symbol on their forehead. Him and the other one have it.
Oh,
So
so
I was like, ooh, they're both. Their ancestors are royalty.
nice,
Wow.
nice.
Yeah, I forgot what it was. I read it so many years ago, but I always remembered the M Before I even had uh, these two, because I had other cats before, and but they weren't tabbies; they were different kinds. And these are my first two tabbies.
Was it calico?
No, I had a Burmese actually, and before that, uh, it was like a Tonkinese. I forgot what they were, but they were both like some kind of like not a Siamese because they're that's a very specific cat, but they had the markings of Siamese, but just thicker. Um, one of them was lighter, one of them was darker, but yeah, these two are tabbies with the really cool markings. So they both have stripes and spots. So this see he has like his stripes, but he also has spots. Oh, sorry. And then the other one has stripes and spots as well.
Mm-hmm.
With the it looks like he has a mask.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
beautiful cat.
really cool.
Yeah.
They're like really cool markings.
They have really cool energy for your cats.
Yeah,
But they're both,
thanks.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're both pretty chill.
yeah. And he's really like he's like you called me.
Mm-hmm.
See how he see his markings? The other
Mm-hmm.
ones, his he looks like a little leopard. Hi Totoro. Wow, so handsome. But anywho, but yeah, that's very interesting conversation, Bray. Thank you for sharing all of that and inspiring. So, how I end the show is I remind everyone at home to always remain authentic. So my slogan is "Be You."
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of just a play on the letters because it's base urbano, but then a B and a U. So
Mm-hmm.
then I make the slogan "Be You."
I like it. I like it.
But
That's a good message too.
yeah, I mean I think to me that's just the most important while you're here on planet Earth is to live authentically because everyone gets so caught up in the expectations of like, oh, what does society want me to be? What do my parents want me to be? What does my significant other want me to be? What is it's always somebody else that we're trying to appease kind of and I think that like as hard as it may be just to really really stay true to who you are and if we want to take it spiritual like who were you before you went into this body, you know, like I'm not Serena, I'm not, you know, my job, I'm not my, you know, whatever. I am the essence of like my soul,
Mm-hmm.
and it just happened to be using this little body temporarily, but the spirit and the soul never dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this body will, but I won't, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and that's who is something to ponder.
You know, they, always, they make movies about that. You know, so they always
Yeah.
make movies about that over and over. Just so many different depictions of it. You know, one movie I liked was pretty cool. It was television show called Carbon Copy. It's
Mm.
on Netflix,
Okay, I'll check it out.
and they call your bodies the slave. You know,
Mm.
in the future you can transfer your consciousness into another body. You can pick a
Yeah.
body that you want it to be in.
Yeah.
If you have the money, the credit, you can live forever. And then your spirit, as you said before. One of my favorite movies when I was younger is called a movie called Made in Heaven, and it's
Mm.
about that, about us being souls in heaven, and
Mhm.
then eventually being born into a body.
Yeah.
You're a full-grown person in heaven, and then you were born and you're a baby, and then you grow, you live, and then you die.
Mhm.
Then you return to then you return to heaven.
Yeah.
And I think like that's what I'm trying to say. Like God gave us a gift to come down here and see what we can do, have live our life, and then we'll send back.
Yeah.
That's like probably the premise of what we can do here. And we live life well, live like we're supposed to do. We can return. I think
Yeah.
that's what Jesus wants. God wants us to do. It starts for us all to return. It may not all happen. Maybe we have to keep playing this all out until we
Right.
all get it right.
Right. That's
You know,
the
the
that's
whole
the
thing about
goal.
hell on earth and stuff like that. You never know what. So many things
Yeah.
going on, but that's
Yeah.
another story.
Yeah. I have a similar belief system where I feel like if we didn't get it right this time, it's okay because we're gonna come back and do it again until we get it right. And then finally, like I don't know. Anyway, that again can be a whole nother conversation. But I want to remind everybody at home to be who, and my guest says, be you. Say be
Be you.
you.
Be you.
Yes. Well, thank you, Barry. It was very nice having you on the show.
Pleasure.
And yeah, see everybody next time. Bye.
Peace.